Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to wish you all a very happy new year, and I hope that all your dreams, hopes, and aspirations come to fruition and are realised in spectacular fashion throughout 2017. I would like to thank you for all your continued support, and without it, I do not believe this channel would exist, so thank you very much for that. To commence this video, I would like to introduce a special talent, an absolutely incredible narrator, and someone who I believe is going to be huge in 2017 and beyond. His channel link is in the description, and I strongly suggest you subscribe to his channel. So without further ado, reading our first story, may I present Viidith, 22.
To set the scene for you, I'm a young woman in my elderly 20s. This incident happened around New Year's 2013 when I was still in high school. It had been a very plain and average day. I had gone to school and gone through all my classes. As I was leaving the building, however, the high school receptionist called me aside and told me that my uncle had come in the front parking lot and had asked for me by name. Are you sure it was from me? I asked. She told me it was, and he even had a photo of me in his hand. That's impossible, I told the secretary. I don't have an uncle. Before I could say anything else, the secretary pointed at a car outside, slowly driving past the school. It was a new-looking dark green BMW with tinted windows. It slowly drove past us, and then turned a corner. The secretary was 100% sure of everything. I couldn't get why someone would pretend to be my uncle and drive a car I'd never even seen before in my life. When I got home, I asked my mom if she knew anyone with a dark green BMW. She told me that she didn't. And nobody in my family did. Nobody I even knew did. There was no genuine explanation for what had happened. At the time, I thought it could have been a genuine mistake. A mix-up of identities. But this is where the story gets far weirder and even harder to explain. Weeks went by after the incident, and we were now well into our Christmas break from school. It was the night before New Year's Eve. I was laying down in my bed when I could hear the sound of a car slowly driving past my house. I live on a closed-off street, so something like this really stood out. I got up and looked through my blinds, and I couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. There it was, the same dark green BMW, slowly driving past my house. The car stopped suddenly, 2 houses down from mine. It was too dark to make out a license plate. It just sat there, on my block. I opened my window, and as I did, the car sped away, into the night. I tried everything I could to not think about it and try to ignore it, but it all kept playing on my mind. The following night was New Year's Eve. I had no plans and I stayed at home. About an hour before midnight, I received a text message on my phone from an unknown number. The message read, "Kiss at midnight." As I read it, I heard the honk of a horn outside. And there it was again. The green BMW, parked right in front of my house. I opened my window and shouted, "Who are you?" The car just sat there, with the engine on. It stayed there, parked for 10 minutes, before driving off again into the night. I never got to find out who it was, or what they wanted, or why they were after me. I had not heard anything else or seen this car since. We are in 2016 now, about to celebrate New Year's. And a week ago, my mom phoned me to tell me that there had been a dark green BMW driving slowly down the block at night.
Story 2. This story is told from the perspective of a female. The events in this story take place during New Year's Eve, and sadly beyond. My girlfriends brought me to a house party to celebrate New Year's with them. I'm not the party sort of person, and definitely not a drinker. I'm kind of awkward at social events. I usually just sit in the corner, by myself, and avoid contact at pretty much any cost. The night was halfway through when my girlfriends pointed out this guy staring at me from across the room. It wasn't the normal checking out someone sort of stare. It was just plain creepy staring. The sort of staring that gives you chills, and not in a good way. The guy's staring then evolved to him moving closer and closer to where I was in the room, until he was sat next to me. He kept looking at me and would occasionally say something awkward like, "Cool party, no?" The guy was awkward as fuck. But I didn't care. This was just a harmless attempt at flirting from a complete newbie. It was the events that happened after this that make me wish I'd gotten out of there a bit earlier than I did. I knew exactly what he was going to try and do. When we got closer to midnight, he began mentioning kissing me at midnight. Typical. How cliché. The one night I do go out, I get stuck with a complete loser. I ended up giving him a peck on the cheek at midnight, and I got myself out of there shortly afterwards, as this guy was giving me the creeps. I went home, and as I got to my door, I couldn't find my wallet. It had my ID and bank cards and everything in it. It was gone from my handbag. I checked my entire house, but I had definitely taken it with me to the party. I was pretty shocked that I'd lost my wallet, as I couldn't really figure out how, as I had not touched it, or even taken it out of my bag all night. The next day, I got a call on my house phone. It was the guy from the night before. My first reaction was, "Oh God, how did you get my number?" And then he told me. He had my purse. He told me that I'd dropped it at the party, and that he'd tried to give it back to me, but I had already left. This story did not add up, and I'm pretty sure he stole it from my purse when I wasn't looking. He told me that he had my number and address in the purse, and that he would happily come over and give me my purse back. I told him thanks for contacting me, and I tried to get him to meet me in a public place. But he was already outside my house, sat in his car. I went outside my house, and there he was. I thanked him for giving me my purse back, and he said, "Well, I guess you're going to invite me in." I said no, and he flipped out good and proper. He started saying things like, "Fuck's sake, I bring you your purse back, and I get nothing? Ungrateful little mutt." He then got back in his car and sped off down the street. I was a little shaken, but I got on with my day. 2 days later, the phone rang again. I was very surprised to see who it was. It was the locksmith. He sounded kind of concerned. He told me that my brother had come into the store, claiming that he was locked out of my house and needed a copy of the front door key. There was a big problem here, because I don't have a brother. He had died 4 years ago. I told the locksmith this, and I could hear his mouth hang wide open in shock. I asked what the guy looked like. When the locksmith gave me the description, it was him, the psycho. He had found a card in my wallet for my locksmiths, and he had gone in and pretended to be my brother so he could get a key to my house. The locksmith told me that he'd asked him to come back in an hour's time, and had fortunately not given him a copy. The psycho never came back to the locksmiths, and so far I have not heard from him again. But he does know where I live, and I always wonder if he will haunt my doors once more.